Before moving forward, I would like to make some clarifications regarding the previous video in this playlist. I explained the configuration files, but something which I think was wrong in the previous video was the indentation of the .cfg files, especially the settings like destination, path, DB path, port, bind IP, ReplcaSet name. I had indented these fields using a tab, which is incorrect. I've made the changes in the GitHub repository, where I've also shared this file. Right now, I've got just two spaces between before these fields. So just ensure that there are no tabs before these fields. Otherwise, um, when you will try to run the database, you would uh, face problems. The application, MongoDB application, would not be able to pass these configuration files correctly. So that was the small clarification. Uh, Now, once we've got the .cfg file set up, the next logical step would be to run the database using these config files. Now, there are different ways of running the database. The most simplest of the ways is to go at your installation folder, the MongoDB installation folder where you've installed MongoDB, go into the service folder 4.0 and bin folder. There you will find a MongoDB executable, which is the mongod.exe file. You can run that, and in the parameter, you can specify the configuration file, and that is how you can run that. Of course, you would need to run 4 instances of this executable, one for the primary database, two for the secondary database, and one for the arbiter. Um, and also, if you're running those on different servers, again, you would have to install MongoDB on different servers and then run the executable in all of those servers with the appropriate configurations. Um, However, in a production environment, you really don't want to have an executable running on its own in a command window. You would rather want to run an executable as a Windows service. So I will explain you a couple of batch files which I've created, which would help you creating Windows services for the primary server, secondary servers, and the arbiter. And also, if you ever want to uninstall those services, how you can uninstall the services. So the first batch file which I've created is the install ReplicaSet services, and we would create MongoDB arbiter using this sc.executable. If you're using Windows, you would be able to run sc.executable. This will help you create a MongoDB arbiter service. You'll specify the name. You can also specify the display name of the arbiter. So I've set display name to be MongoDB underscore arbiter as well. And I've set the parameter um, start as auto, which means that in a Windows reboot scenario, just start the service automatically. Now, if you look into this closely, there's another parameter, which is the bin path, where I've set exactly the same file path, folder path, which we just saw where we found the MongoDB executable, and it's pointing to that exe actually, mongod.exe. And all what we are trying to do is that we are trying to say that create this service, and when the service will run, it will run this executable as a result, as a service, and use the .cfg file which we created in the previous video. So I've specified underscore hyphen hyphen config, equals, and then I've specified the path of the arbiter.config. And you have to carry out the same steps for creating a primary instance of the database. sc.exe, create MongoDB primary, specify the MongoDB executable path, say that I would like to run it as a service, and also point to the config primary which we built in the last video. You can also set the display name and set the start parameter as auto, so that in a reboot scenario this service also starts as primary. And then you need to carry out the same steps for the secondary server and the second of the secondary servers. Again, I will run this batch file on this machine, and hopefully it will be able to create all the 4 services on this machine. If you would want to create these services on separate machines, then you would perhaps need to break this batch file down and place these in your appropriate servers, and then you can run this batch file and install the arbiter on one server, the primary database on another server, and same goes for the secondary and the second of the secondary servers. Now I found it useful to have the uninstall ReplicaSet services.batch. In case if you have any issues, you can simply run this batch file and you would be able to uninstall all the services. So you just need to use the delete parameter, and then you would say which service you want to install. So running this bash file would uninstall the services. Um, we perhaps won't be needing it, requiring it that much, but it would still be useful if you have it. And if you want to uninstall, you can easily uninstall your services in case of any problems. I will share both of these batch files in my GitHub repository so that you can inspect these files and make the changes as you find appropriate, and that would also enable you to easily install the services on your computer. So let's run these bash files to see if they actually install the services. So to show you again, I've got the 2 batch files which I just explained. I'll run this, and it is saying that all the 4 services have been created successfully. So let's go in the task manager, and I will go into the services. I'll open the services, perhaps close this, and if I see, so I can see the MongoDB primary service, the secondary one, the secondary two, and the arbiter. Now this is the default MongoDB service, which is created generally on installation, but we would not need this because we are creating our own services, and these are the services which we'll intend to use in the future videos. So once the services are installed, I'll try to start each of these one by one. So it seems like all the 4 services are running now. And that's about it. We've been able to install all the 4 services, and